Hey, everybody, you have got, I'm singing to you. You've got to check out this episode that I'm doing with Janelle. I'm not even going to tell you who she is. I'm not going to tell you anything else. I'm just too freaking excited. You've got to listen to that. You've got to. I can't even speak. I'm so excited. I'm just going to like stutter over myself. So just watch this, listen to this. You've got to get in on this episode. It's everything. Are you ready for a wild ride? I'm Alexis Artin, and I invite you to strap in because this is more than a podcast. This is Look at Me Now. Wowza, we have quite the episode for you today. I'm like a bucking bronco. Like, let's get into this. I have Janelle here, and Janelle is one of my best friends. She is the co-founder of SoulSway practice with me. And she is also one of the only 3 certified practitioners and teachers of something called Shiva Murti in the United States, which is a Balinese healing practice. And she is formerly a doula, and she's also an actress that you may have seen on a few things, just saying. And she's in the studio with me today, and I couldn't be more freaking thrilled. Hello, Janelle.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here.
For those of you who have followed along on my journey, and for those of you getting to know me, Janelle and I go way back. And she recently, in the last couple years, moved to another coast. She moved to Florida. And so having her in the same room as me literally makes my tail wag. I mean, ugh, God, I can't. It makes me want to just bark and wiggle and lick things. So Janelle is here with me. Hi, Janelle.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here.
We're teaching a pop-up class tonight. So like, we're just like in the vibes right now.
We
so
are.
excited.
The wiggle has begun.
It has begun. This is what we do. We hold no shame in these bodies, people. Join us. So, as we do here on this podcast, this Look at Me Now situation, we are going to take a look back. I want to get into a little bit of your past by way of this question first. So, Janelle and I met. Why don't you tell everybody how we met? You tell everybody how we met.
Well, we met, I think you prefaced it already as a sexy cult. Is that what you called it?
I did.
I've actually never heard you call it that, but it seems very appropriate.
It does.
So I'm going to go with it. That's my new tag for my past life. But
you're welcome.
We met there. We met in a sexy cult.
We met in a sexy cult. So let's unpack from your personal history. I don't even know that we've ever really gotten into this, but like, what got you there? What brought you? What is like the story of Janelle that sucked you into this weird world that we met in?
I remember it very clearly, sort of the whole progression of how I got there. As you mentioned, once upon a time I was an actor. I am not any longer, but at once upon a time I was an actor. And as such, I was in acting classes and, having coaches tell me, what was wrong with me and, what I could do better at. And, my acting coach put me in, it was a scene in which, I was applying lotion. Basically. I mean, not basically, that's what I was doing, was applying lotion. And so, I'm up there on the stage and I'm doing my acting best. And I was putting on my lotion like this, patting my own arm barely,
Is
making
that actually,
contact.
wait, hold on. Is that actually how you put on lotion at the time?
Apparently, I was not consciously aware of that, but okay. but it was brought to my attention quite publicly.
Okay, keep going
in this class. So I'm there, and I'm also wearing a negligee in the scene. Okay, so I'm already feeling very vulnerable and uncomfortable, and being pushed out of my comfort zone all the time, as you do as an actor, right? Isn't that the point? So I'm forever grateful for this story. I laugh about it now, but I'm forever grateful for this moment where, so I'm putting on the lotion and I'm basically patting my own arm, but not even with my whole hand, right? Like making as little contact as humanly possible with my own body. And the teacher, she was very boisterous and she was like, wait, cut. What are you doing? I said, well, I'm putting on lotion. And she said, is that how you put on lotion? And I said, I think so. She said, can you rub it on your arm. And she, of course, did it. She stood up there and she was like long and lean and just, she had a certain grace about her. And she was like, can't you just rub your own arm sensually? And my eyes were like, ah, because it was an amazing moment because it wasn't so much that I couldn't, it was that I had no idea that I didn't. You know, once she told, yes, I did it, but it was this like, this is a new feeling. That was like the huge aha. And she said to me, she literally said, you are not sexy and you need to do something about it. And I thought, well, darn it, I have been faking it. And she basically was like, yeah, you have been. Someone needs to help you find your sexy. If you can't touch your own body. So then I went on like a little bit of a quest, I guess. And I had heard murmurings of this place from, wherever, like Dark Shadows. Ooh, there's this place where they do sexy things in the dark. And, I'd always thought that's not for me. And anyway, this comment and this critique, this very constructive, ultimately critique from this woman, gave me the encouragement to go in. That's how I found it.
Okay.
Did you not know that story?
I did not know that story. And wow, is that loaded really in so many ways. I mean, how many people have ever been called out in their life for not being sexy? And if we could unpack what is sexy and all of that, which we did try to do at the Sexy Cult.
Yes, we did.
Please know we spent a decade unpacking what is sexy and going on a holy grail quest to find it in our bodies and others. So, I mean, that's a whole other podcast episode right there. Okay, but I digress. So that is what got you into this sexy cult.
Yep.
Okay, great. So thereby, like, our shared history begins. And it was interesting because I got into this sexy cult by way of a introduction through a friend that had been going there and that insisted that all of her girlfriends had to try this thing that she had found. And I don't know if I've ever told this story, so I'm going to tell it now. I went to this class with a friend of mine who was gaga over it. And she was, oh gosh, everybody take this with a grain of salt, knowing that this is how I used to be. This is not how I am now. But the way that I saw her back then was I was going to this class with my not sexy friend who was taking me to a sexy class. And what a conundrum, just the simple act of that. But then we get to the class and I've been a dancer my whole life. And this is like a dance-oriented, movement-based practice, fluid feminine movement and pole dancing and things of this nature. And I remember taking the class and being like, oh, wow, that was different. That was interesting. I haven't really experienced a dance class without mirrors or with low lights. I've never worked a pole before. This is all new to me. And thinking like, wow, yeah, there's something to this. But I can't say that I was like, my credit card was like going to burst out of my wallet to sign up, right? Until we get to the end of the class and the teacher says, okay, so existing students, you've brought newcomers to this practice. So what I'm going to give you the opportunity to do is to show your friends what you've been up to here. So if you're the new person in the room, sit down. I mean, you know how this goes, right? Yeah. But if you're the new person in the room, sit down. Your friend who's been practicing at this for some time is going to show you what they've been up to in here. And within the first 30 seconds of, whatever, like, glory box or something dramatic coming on, some sort of song coming on. And seeing my friend start to move, my not sexy friend who I would cry with, who I would laugh with, who I would go to the club with, but I was the sexy friend at the club. I mean, that's the way that I saw it. And she started to move. And in that first 30 seconds of seeing her, 5 seconds of seeing her move, I was like, oh my God, she is the sexiest thing I have ever seen on 2 legs. And how did I miss it? And I now am the one going, I have no idea what sexy is. And if that's a lie, what else is a lie? And my whole world just like went upside down, like a 180. And I just remember my thoughts immediately going to, I have to knock people out of the way to get to the counter as soon as they open the door and make sure I get a spot. Like I couldn't even focus anymore. I was like, I must have what she's having. Like I'll have what she's having. And that was it. I was a goner. I had bit the dust. I had, gone all in that one moment. I didn't even know that I had like signed my soul away in that moment. I was just in.
Well, what's so funny for the both of us, in telling these stories from the get-go, that 180 that happened for you, what a gift, what a thing to learn and to see. For me, discovering that acknowledging that I actually had no connection to my body and finding a place where I was able to exercise that, it was all positive, So isn't that interesting that we joke now and call it a sexy cult, but like the things that lured, I don't even want to say lured us because it wasn't a lure. It was like, I learned, I needed to know that. I needed to go on that discovery.
As did I. It was like they had caught lightning in a bottle. And I'm forever grateful. And I find it so funny, I'm obsessed, this. I'm obsessed with like the cult documentaries and all of those things. And I was watching one in particular about NXIVM. And the filmmaker, who was also a participant in this cult, and I just remember him saying, nobody signs up for a cult thinking they're signing up for a cult. Everybody goes into a cult or a community or whatever you want to call it, right? It's all just language, but goes into that dynamic thinking there is something really good here. There is something really life-changing here. And I think that you and I both share that sentiment of, wow, that time in our lives, that place that we spent so much of our time and our energy and our emotion, just poured every ounce of ourselves into that place, was because we so benefited from it and we so believed in it. And it was the collateral damage sort of came hindsight, right? Hindsight being 2020 and looking in the rearview mirror and going, oh, wow, red flags were everywhere. Car crashes were everywhere. How did we not realize that we were in the thick of it when we were in the thick of it? Or maybe we did, but like the cost reward analysis at the time, or the cost reward, reward
thing.
I can't even talk when I'm with you. Oh God. Yeah, you get what I'm saying. But like that rub of like, I'm getting so much from this. And at the same time, is this growth or is this trauma? And what am I really dealing with?
That was a blurry line.
It was a really blurry line. And I have to say, if nothing else, I walked away with some of the most epic relationships of my life. I mean, you're sitting right across from me now, and we're going to get to all the good, juicy stuff in that, right? But like some of my greatest friends, my soul sisters were created, that bond was created in that place. Now, granted, it may be trauma bonding, but I'll take it, But I think that there is some really juicy, yummy things that we can talk about what we gleaned, what we learned, what we witnessed, what we took away from, not just on the trauma side of things, but on the, wow, we had some epic times together. We learned a lot. We saw some pretty magnificent things. And I think let's share with everybody, like, what is this sexy cult experience that we've had? Because I feel like we've already sort of like made our bed. Let's sleep in it. How would you describe your experience of what this was?
Oh, that's tough because I also have the hindsight. But just
Go back to the
yeah,
beginner Janelle.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
The one that first found this, and then just like walk us through the journey,
Sure.
maybe.
Well, I can remember some initial key experiences. Okay, first off, let's imagine, I think you mentioned it, but a darkened room and no mirrors and red light, and it's supportive women, and everyone's in a circle, and it feels very safe and nurturing and collective and all of that. And then the music is great, and the teachers are inspiring. And so I remember going into my first class. At that point in time in my life, I was very aggressive with my exercise. Like I was at that point like training for marathons, and that was sort of like my mindset around how I use my body. You know, it was like I gotta beat it up and make it really hurt. Yeah. So I came into this space where the approach felt very different. And I remember being in like a long, languid stretch. And like, I understand it now. And, you know, and the teacher probably said it something like that. Take your time and really indulge in the feeling of this stretch. And I was like, what? When are we going to get to the thing? You know, where's the thing, right? I'm here in a stretch. I'm feeling a little bit bored. I mean, the music is good, but what am I doing here? And I remember it was an open leg stretch, and I wasn't very flexible. And I was like, trying to reach the ground and feeling kind of awkward, like, you know, and her face is like against the ground, and her hair is like dragging, and it looks really sensual. And I'm there just awkward, like, I'm trying to get my hands across. And I remember when I came over to my own leg, and I heard my acting teacher was like, is that how you put on lotion? And when I made that contact with my leg, I thought, oh, here's where it gets weird for me. Okay, I guess I'll keep trying this. So I was not hooked at that moment. It was like a good, I would say, well, I do remember. It was about 7 weeks in, because it was towards the end of what would have been called the level 1 class. So just to paint a picture, in the level 1 class, you learn, we talked about it as like learning a new language. So you're just getting like the basic letters, maybe a few words. You're starting to string together maybe a little something with your body. Oh, can you do like a circling of your hips and then reach your arm? You know, like put it together into something. But you're just learning these movements that feel kind of like erotic and maybe provocative in your body. Anywho, I remember the teacher put us in a outside facing circle. So we were now facing away from each other. And she put the lights in the room down really, really low. And all we were doing were circling our hips. So, okay, I have hips. I can circle them, right? They do that. But mine didn't, okay? They were very, very straight, very straight. And so I'm circling, and it was a small circle. I was peeking out the corner of my eyes trying to see in the dark, like, are other people's circles bigger? And the teacher was like yelling. She got very fierce during this bit. She was like, bigger circles, go, come on. And it was a Marilyn Manson song or something. I mean, cancel. But you know, like it was like, the room was loud, and she was screaming like, move. And I'm going, I am in my own mind. And then finally there was this moment where actually my hips moved. Like they moved farther than they ever had. And it felt like a chain unlocked from my body. And I just started crying.
Yeah.
And now my hip was at an angle that I'd never experienced it at before. And I'm crying, and I don't understand what's happening. And the music is loud. And then class was over, and I was like, oh my God, get me out of here. Like I'm a mess. What just happened? Let me go run a marathon. But long story short is that was actually what sealed it for me, is that it did teach me, it showed me, it revealed to me the ways that my body had been restricted, whether that be through shaming, through judgment from others or myself, but that had kept me really locked and unable to be expressive and live fully inside this body. And it was a huge moment for me.
It's funny. I was reading I was watching on Instagram a story that somebody had posted, a friend of mine. And it was supposed to be this like joke about, hey girls, have you ever walked home at night alone like this? And it showed a woman like acting like she had like a leg that didn't work, like dragging it behind her, and like a face that was half paralyzed, and like so that she wasn't attractive enough to be, targeted by unwanted or unnecessary attention, uninvited attention, right? And I remember my first reaction was to giggle. And then my immediate reaction after that was, oh, wow, this is the state of the feminine body, that we need to distort ourselves so extremely and significantly to be safe in our bodies, to let our bodies take up space and be big and call attention, but it has to be the most negative kind of attention in order for it to be safe. And I messaged back and I was like, gosh, isn't it such a shame the lengths that we women need to go to in order to feel safe in our bodies? And for you, sticking your hip all the way out like that was not safe. Until you had this perspective shift of, oh, wait, not only is that safe, that's my God-given right. That's what my body is designed to do. And how crazy that I have been restricting it and punishing it and bullying it back into a rigid state rather than the fluid state. The invitationally safe space that my body invites, right? And that's what I witnessed in my friend was, oh, wow, that is such authentic confidence. She wasn't choreographed. She wasn't forcing anything. Yeah. She was so regulated in her nervous system. She was so authentically confident and comfortable and liquid in her motion. And I had never seen a woman move like that. It shattered me. Or, what do they call that now? It was a glimmer, right? And so you and I both share that same story, as do so many other people that were in this quote unquote, sexy cult that we were in. They were shown a side of what it is to be a woman who lives safely and confidently and self-lovingly in her body without it carrying an apology, without it carrying shame. And there aren't many places in this world that you can witness that. Now, granted, in that space, the lights were low and there were no mirrors because God forbid you gave your power away, right? It's like, I talk so much now about the lessons learned from not being allowed to have mirrors in those spaces. Well, why? Am I going to give the mirror my power? The only power in that mirror is me deciding that what's in it is lovable, not I'm going to shame what I see in the mirror, so I can't have it in here. It's no, bring that mirror in and let me teach that mirror how lovable I am. So there were some things that, talking about like that there were some traumatic times, right? That we had there too. But it's all for growth and learning, right? So that now I want to invite a mirror in because I want to create a healthier relationship with my body. I want to be able to have the lights on when and if I want them on. And if I want them dim, so be it. But let it be my choice and let it be a healthy choice rather than one that I don't have a choice over because I just can't live with the shame of having a mirror around, right? And thereby SoulSway. But that's fine. Here we go. Continuing on. We'll get there. So now walk me through the next few chapters of our shared history from your perspective of, okay, so we've had this level 1 experience. Our hip has jutted out. What a revelation. And then what?
Well, it was for me at that point, that was when I actually I had to take a break after my first session. And I think I was going on a trip or something and I didn't want to pay for it when I was going to be missing 2 of the weeks or something. It was a very regimented schedule. Like there wasn't much flexibility in when you could show up. So I thought, okay, I need to take a break. And while I was on that break, like I missed it. I missed it so much. Like I felt a craving in my body to have a space where I was allowed to move like that. And I basically ran in the doors when I came back for the session after that and inquired about teaching. I was like, how does this work? And just stars kind of aligned at that moment in time because a training had just started or was just about to start, something like that. They had just, I'm not sure, but it was like the timing was just perfect. And I just floated right into that first training. And that was 2006. And I was a small child then. It was a lifetime ago. You know what just came to me actually was telling my mom that I was going to teach this thing. That was just I don't know why it just flashed in my mind. Maybe because she's babysitting my children right now while I'm here. But it flashed in my mind, me having this like, what's my mom going to say about this? Because of course she didn't know I was taking these sexy classes. And now not only was I taking them, but I was gonna teach it.
I'm dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then,
how
then
did she
that
take
chapter
it?
began.
How did your mom take it?
How? She grew into it.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. She didn't understand. She definitely didn't understand. I actually think that was what it was. Janelle, I don't understand. Like I was explaining, okay, so I've been taking these classes and, you know, we roll around in the dark in our panties. And just like, that's probably not how I said it, but I think it was like silence. Janelle, I don't understand.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm actually tracking back. I think
I don't understand, but go ahead.
I actually don't understand either.
Understand.
I still don't understand because what did we do most of the time? We rolled around in the dark in our panties.
Well, I mean, but we changed panties. We wore so many different panties, trying to find the right panty.
Oh my God, the right panty. To go over the first panty and then the second and then the third. And
layers of panties. Because we really went on this. I mean, people, you have to understand. It was an emotional excavation of what was called your erotic creature. Mm-hmm. And this thing evolved over time. It evolved over time where we were on the hunt for every little nuanced aspect of it's almost like an avatar of our erotic creature, where we were like trying to identify her archetypes and her primary archetype, and then her secondary archetype, and then her tertiary archetype. And then, well, does she wear fishnets? Does she wear stockings? Does she wear socks? Does she wear only a red sock on the right foot and a white sock on the left? Wait, does there need to be a perfectly placed hole somewhere in that sock? And if it shifts, our erotic creature is off, right? Like it can't. But I mean, I can't even tell you to the depths of which. And then you had to find the song that was your husband. Mm-hmm. Your husband's song, and it had to have all the right layers of the matching emotions to the archetypes. You know, it had to be that you wanted to make love to that song, but you could also be held by that song. But you could, I mean, the way you were searching
really
for a
fight
husband
with that song.
You could really fight with that song. And then we had a lap dance chair, and it was, you know, how do you call love from the lap dance chair? How do you bring love to the lap dance chair? And then it was, okay, you're getting too emotional. You're emotionally venting in your movement. You're not being erotic enough in your movement. Okay, now it's too erotic. I'm not feeling your heart. It was just like, oh my God, I'm getting split personality. Just trying to follow all the rules of what it is to be sexy in this exploration of what is sexy, rather than me just listening to my body. Right? Which, I mean, again, we could circle the drain of all the ways that our minds were messed with, right, in this sexy cult. But it really just to be in a room, let's start there, to be in a room where you feel safe. Mm-hmm. How many rooms are there that you know that exist like that. Not many. Where you like, your nervous system recognizes, I am safe here. I can authentically be who I am in each and every moment and feel safe in that, whatever that looks like. Whether I laugh, whether I cry, whether I freeze, whether I fight, whether I fawn, no matter what I do, if I rest and digest and I'm doing weird things, it all flies here. This is an all fly zone. And it's really rare to find that, let alone find that when you're in your panties, working a pole. You know what I mean? Because really, I mean, that was also such a big premise of where we worked was we are reclaiming this movement. We are reclaiming the pole and pole dancing and sexy dancing in your panties and your 6-inch heels. We are reclaiming it for the feminine. This is not, picking up dirty dollars that have been thrown at you by men. This is you, rising into the full sexual prowess that is rightfully yours and reclaiming it, the goddess culture, just women. Like they so often referred to it as like Fight Club for women. Do you remember that?
Yeah, yeah.
It was like this dark, underground, sexy place where we got to be in our full erotic power, like men with their shirts off, just punching each other in the face.
And it was a grimy building as well.
It was grimy. We did crawl on the floors. We weren't picking up dollars, but we were sliding across dirty floors. I remember
they were gross.
And they would give feedback. So you would get feedback from your teacher after you danced, right? We would do singular dances and the whole class would watch you and then the teacher would give you feedback. And the feedback was to help you get closer to your erotic creature, the truth of your erotic creature. And I remember one time after I had had a child, the feedback that I had gotten was, that I needed to pretend that I was crawling around my house in my thong panties and my 6-inch heels and picking up my toddler's toys with my teeth. I mean, that was actual feedback that I got in this class. That was
Did it resonate with you?
Not only was I so deep in it at the time, not only did it resonate, I did it. I went home and I did it because it was when you were so in it, it was like a call to arms. Like you were a soldier in an army and you did not take an order. You know what I'm saying?
That is so true.
And it's like we are the front line for reclaiming the feminine and our eroticism and our right to own our bodies and to be sexual and to be enlivened in our sensuality and to not carry any shame about it. That it's like, you better believe I had a toy in my teeth. Crawling around that house. So, okay, I digress because we could really, here we go.
I don't know if we ever painted a complete picture, but I don't know that you can.
I don't know that you can. I hope you can just get a glimpse, people, into how crazy this world was. And anyway, I feel like the collective history that we shared where things started to really plummet.
Yeah, they did.
was when we started doing these really intense retreats.
Yes.
Walk me through your experience of retreats.
My very first experience at a retreat was when I was a teacher, though I went as a student. So that was my first experience of one of these like deep dive experiences. And it was, I can't articulate for you now the whys of why it was so traumatizing, but I rode when the weekend was over and I was completely destroyed. I mean, I'd been crying for 24 straight hours or something and no sign of anyone helping me come back together. I was driving home actually with a teacher and I said to her, if I weren't a teacher, I would never come back. And she was like, ooh, uh-oh. So I was called into a meeting to try and help me, I guess. Like, can we save Janelle from this thing she's experienced? So that was my first experience at a retreat. And then I think it was a couple of years actually before I started teaching at them. But how do we even really begin? But being a teacher at these retreats was beyond the scope of really any individual's capacity for everything. It's like it's beyond an individual's capacity. I actually, what do you want to say? I don't know what to say about it, to be honest.
Well, I mean, I think that's a good start. Just knowing that you came off of your very first experience of it going, if I wasn't a teacher, I wouldn't go back. And before I even say anything more about that, which I will, I just want to unpack for 1 second. What about being a teacher made you feel like you had to?
I think that's a great question. And it actually flashed in my mind as I was saying that, like, why? Why couldn't I just leave? And what it was at the time I was an actor. And so as an actor, one often has a side job. And I was in such a position that I had a side job that I was passionate about, that I loved teaching these classes. I believed in this movement. I was behind the mission. I was in it. And to be able to have a side job that didn't feel like a side job was, I just couldn't turn my back on that. And why I didn't connect, wait a second. Mm-hmm. Wait, what? Wait, hang on. I'm not sure why that connection wasn't made in that moment.
Well, and to now further where you've just gotten in that inquiry, could you not have just continued to teach the classes and said, but I'm not going to do the retreats?
Yes, that was my intention. I kind of made that, oh, no, I take it back. I'm wrong. I actually am losing the timeline on a lot of this. I said something inaccurate before earlier, but it's okay. I don't think anyone's tracking my life timeline. But, it was that there was such a elevating of the teachers that did teach at these retreats that you felt like, I want to do that. There was something in it. There was some kind of pinnacle thing that was going on. And I guess I wanted a touch of that. I wanted to feel the fame.
The significance.
The significance. Yes.
It's a human need.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I will answer your question. Thank you for indulging me in that. Retreats were tricky because they were just a huge beast to pull off. These 4-day events that cost $4,000 or $5,000, and they're sunrise to well past sundown. Nobody's sleeping, particularly the staff. The stress is high. Things are pivoting and changing on a dime. It's all hands on deck, and it's just a lot of pressure, especially because people are paying such a premium price to have a life-changing experience. And who's the ones that are supposedly changing their lives? Right. So we're sort of put in this pressure cooker of, have you cracked every egg? Mm-hmm. Right? Has every egg been cooked? Mm-hmm. Right? To perfection? Did they get what they came for? And when you're dealing in absolutes, you can know that, right? But sort of the only measure of that in this really non-absolute environment, because it's, the quality of, an emotional exhale, like I've achieved the thing, right? That's hard to measure. So really we were driven to make sure that everybody had what was called a shattering, which was a moment when they completely, literally had a breakdown of some sort, an emotional breakdown of some sort. Mm-hmm. And that was sort of the mile marker of, oh, wow, we've really achieved something with them. Now there's going to be transformation because we've sort of broken their spirit in some way. And now they can grow back from that stronger. And so for me, there was the aspect of that, all of the pressure to make sure that we came in on, because I was the creative director of the company as well as a teacher, but I didn't really get the privilege of being a teacher until, I almost sort of left the creative director role at these retreats specifically. There was some crossover, but being able to come in on budget, being able to make sure that the teachers were delivering everything that was expected of them, making sure that the students were getting the journey that they had paid for, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And realizing that so many of the teachers were making less than minimum wage to carry that beast on their back and deliver it every single time. Seeing how exhausted and broken, the teachers were at the culmination of these events, how many times I experienced that myself, really made what could have been so wonderful and so beneficial, because so many beautiful things did happen at those retreats. We did see women grow and transform immensely. We all bonded so beautifully. I've never laughed so hard. I've never cried so much. I've never released and let go of so much. I've never found myself in a room where I felt so often so safe to really flourish into the fullness of who I am. And yet at the same time, I would come home going, I need therapy from this. And I don't even know if therapy is ever going to really help me resolve what just transpired there. So it was the shadow and the light equally, like meeting each other. And for me, I will say also as the creative director of that company, wow, you guys are getting a lot from me on this episode. Another thing that I've never told anybody publicly is the founder of this company, who I worked hand in hand with for many, many years as the creative director, and then as a master teacher and a teacher trainer and all these things. There was one retreat that I was supposed to get on a plane and go to. And this story. I'm letting you all in on it. I was 4 months postpartum with my first son. And I was supposed to get on a plane to go be the creative director and lead the teachers and all of these things at a retreat in Jamaica. And 3 of you pulled up outside of my house to pick me up to go to the airport together. And the retreat started like the next day or something. And I couldn't get in the car because I was on the floor in a ball, rocking back and forth, barely able to speak English. I was having such massive postpartum psychosis anxiety because my aunt and uncle had died in a plane crash when I was 6, left behind their 5-year-old daughter, my cousin. And for some reason in that moment, my postpartum depression, anxiety, psychosis, reared itself as I'm going to die on this plane on the way to Jamaica, and I'm going to leave my infant son motherless. And to me, that was just as real as anything else was real at the time. And I ended up on a psychiatrist's sofa the next day, getting immediate intervention and care and being put on medicine and all of these things. And I remember everybody at the retreat stopped communication with me. And that was so jarring. And then when everybody came back, because everybody had gone radio silent on me and I was in my own crisis, I didn't know what I was going to be met with. And, here, the founder of the company that I worked so closely with and gave my blood, sweat, and tears to 24/7, the mother of female empowerment, all these women had paid, thousands of dollars and traveled halfway around the world to study with her because she was supposedly this leader of this female empowerment movement, women elevating women. And she came home to me after I just had that experience. And she said, I thought you were Superwoman. Turns out you're not. You're going to have to pay for your plane ticket because we're not going to reuse it. You'll never work or go to another retreat again. Everybody on the team is so furious and angry with you. You're going to have to go apologize to them and beg for their forgiveness. I don't know if they'll forgive you. Get out of my office. True story. True story. So to me, that was the beginning of the end. That was a retreat story. And there are millions of retreat stories. Now, sexy cult, I stayed. I stayed. And I did go to future retreats because this place was so wish-washy. They said one thing, did another, right? But I mean, I stayed for years. And God bless that I did, because I found coaching as a result of this. I got so deep in it and I was so twisted in on myself. Therapy wasn't working. Nothing was working, that a friend of mine was like, you should talk to my coach. And I did. And while it took years, and even though I'd been in therapy since I was 5, none of it had worked the way this coach just by my bootstraps got me up and out of that place. And it leads us to where we are now. So let's transition.
Okay.
Gosh, we've gone on a ride so far. So how we transition is Janelle and I leave said sexy cult.
Alexis was first.
I was
I'm going to give her absolute credit for that. I was second.
I was first.
I don't mean second of 2. I mean second of many.
I was first.
And maybe not. I mean, there were others that left. Don't get us wrong, but
yeah.
you know, as far as like,
there were. Yeah, I mean, the
we
place all but shut its
convince.
doors. Really, is what happened. It's another podcast. But so on the heels of leaving, we both realized in hindsight, okay, we have a lot of work to do to heal ourselves from all the shadow values that were held at this company and all the things that we endured and experienced, and not playing the victim, right? I mean, we were there by choice, and we certainly perpetuated certain things. We obviously got a lot out of it at the time, or we wouldn't have been there. So this is not a, just a privileged perspective on anything. This is calling it what it was. I mean, there was all kinds of hairy-carry going on there, and all things have been called out publicly about that. And people can certainly do the research online about that, because, but I would say research both sides is what I would say, not just one side. But what was really beautiful, the most beautiful thing that came out of that is our partnership. And so let's talk about that. When I left, I really was so gung-ho. Everybody's coming with me. I had like a Jerry Maguire moment at a party that it was the day that I decided that I was leaving. I had gotten yet again, some sort of unsavory news about the sexy cult. And I was like, I am officially done. Like, it was the straw that broke the camel's back. And I went on a crusade because so many people were going to this party that we were going to be at the day that I snapped. And I went around that room, and anybody that would listen to me, I had such a Jerry Maguire moment of like, I'm holding up the fish and I'm like, this fish is coming with me. Who's coming with me? And of course, nobody came. It was quite embarrassing. It was total crickets. People heard me out and they're like, yeah, I hear you. I feel you. Like, good luck with that. But eventually everybody did come in their own time. But from that moment on, and even prior to that, I had already started my own coaching practice, and I was starting to fill the holes that I had seen and experienced there. But once you left and we joined forces, and we realized how much good we could do with not only the beautiful gifts that we had gained and skills we had learned, but also what we realized was needed and we weren't given. How could we develop that? How could we integrate that and give people what we had always hoped we would have gotten at this sexy cult? And maybe even free ourselves from the shackles that sexy connotation had. What if we just had a safe space to be authentically who we are in our bodies without apology? What if we removed all of the conditions and the limitations of anybody else being our authority, about it having anything to do with the external gaze, whether that is like out in the world or even in that room where the teacher was the expert, where there was something that we didn't have or we couldn't see, and the teacher was the one who was going to give it to us and reveal it to us. What if I got to go in a room that felt so safe that my nervous system went, all of me gets to arrive here, and that's enough. I'm already the expert. There is nothing to gain and there is nothing to lose. I am love, and I just get to be that in this space, whatever shape it takes. Whatever physical shape I show up in, whatever shapes I take while I'm here. If it's the shape of just laying here and a single tear rolls out, if it's the shape of me sobbing, if it's the shape of me just in a gentle sway the entire time, if it's the shape of me doing cartwheels, if it's the shape of me being erotic, whatever it is safe here. It is given permission here. It is encouraged here. It is inspired here. And I won't walk away with any sort of consequence or repercussion that I'm going to heap on myself or let anybody else put upon me. What a revelation. Does that exist anywhere? No, let's build it. And we did.
Yep.
And we did. But I want you to talk about what your experience of us, building this was like.
Well, one thing you said just struck me about a space where you referenced the teacher feedback at our previous company. And that was a big piece of what I started to feel myself separating from while working at that company. Like I started to really pull apart, wait, why do I have the answer to what their body needs? They're in that body. They're in the body. Like they have the power to investigate that. And I didn't know how to shift it yet at the time, but I just knew I didn't feel like it was my place anymore to say, here is what I see. Because like, who cares what I see? Like, what do you feel and you know? Like, people are seeing things about us all the time. What does that have to do with my truth? You know? So anywho, I had started to kind of separate from that, and I was doing less and less of it in class. And I guess like the word got around, and long story short, just to simplify it in a big way, I got in quote trouble for it. And that was my exit. I was like, okay, actually, this is perfect because I don't want to do that anymore. Goodbye. So that's really condensing the story of my departure. But I think that was a centerpiece of what we were inspired to try and build. And I remember, you and I, we started talking about just like, let's see if people want to, let's just do a workshop. Let's call it this and do something. Let's do it different. We're not going to have feedback. There's not going to be all the thing. It's just people get to move. Let's more or less make it up as we go. And not that we didn't have a plan. I mean, we did, but it was very experimental. And we put something up on its feet, and it was like, yes, it was received so beautifully. And then, of course, the whole world turned upside down shortly thereafter as COVID started. And then all of this became like stories in our minds that we were trying to find answers to. And I remember so clearly, I was up, I just see it so clearly. I was folding laundry up in my bedroom, and we were on the phone, and you were like, I've got it. I know, I got it. And what you described was the soul body paradox that you have since like brought fully into life and trademarked and has become like the cornerstone of the philosophy at SoulSway. But it was you saying, oh, this comes together with this, comes together with this. I'm not gonna get deep into you could get deep into the philosophy, but comes together with this and comes together with this, and it's all the bridge and it's coming together, and then we move from there. And I was like, yes, I don't know what you said. Yes, I'm in. And it was this I'm in moment, and we started building from there. And it has taken on so many shapes. It has been now close to a 4-year journey. And in those 4 years, it's taken on shape after shape after shape because of all the layers of what we, I think, were needing to heal, to rectify, to redeem, I mean, there were so many things to try and peel back the layers of our experience and what we really wanted to offer. Yeah.
So much also working and studying with other experts in their fields who were actually, you know, trained and qualified to help us see things from a perspective of trauma-informed care and how to approach everything that we offer, be it meditation, be it, you know, sacred sexuality, be it, you know, somatics, be it whatever it is, actually working with people that can really be trusted to give us the feedback that we needed, to teach us the tools and the skill sets and the understandings that we didn't have, because that is really the patchwork, the foundation with which everything rests. And it was patchworked at our prior place. And that's where, you know, so many things fell through the cracks and the seams were ripping and all of these things. Whereas now it's like, oh, right. You know, we get to stand on the integrity of doing this in a way that, you know, there's congruence between what the design is and what the experience is. And I think that that's really, really magical. So, I mean, we've run the gamut, and what we always do at the end of this podcast is we look at the future. And I'm going to do one quick thing with you about looking at the future. But before I do, what do you see in the future? What do you hold as an intention for the future? And let's make it about SoulSway, since that's what we've been talking about. Deer in headlights.
You didn't prepare me. SoulSway, there's so much... it feels like we're bringing something new out in the world. When we talk about it, people are not always sure what we're saying just yet. You know, I don't get it. I still don't understand what it is. What I see in the future is that when someone is presented with SoulSway or something like SoulSway or something that comes in the future, they're like, oh, I get it. I get what that is, and I get why I need that. I understand the value of that. I see how that can saturate my life. I see how that can create like ritual and healing and growth. Yeah, I don't know if that was a great answer to your question.
No, it is. I mean, I think what you're saying is that your intention is seeing that self-care, like really deep, nourishing self-care, becomes as much of a requirement in our daily routine as brushing our teeth.
Thank you. That was so well said.
Well, I know you. I can read your mind. Okay, so the last exercise that I always like to do is we hold up a mirror.
Oh.
So as if you were holding up a mirror to say, look at me now. Not it's, you know, because you're looking in a mirror, it's not this like external gaze. Look at me now, everybody. Look at what I've achieved, right? But looking in the mirror and just even remembering the collective history that we just went through and everything, everything that you've been through and how resilient you've had to be and how flexible you've had to be and how resourceful you've had to be. Looking in the mirror and going, this is what I need you to hear from me now, Janelle, moving forward. What is reflected back at you?
That I always know if I'm in alignment. I know. I don't have to ask. Am I doing this right? Is it okay that I did this? Ooh, how did you think about that action I took? You know, I always know. That doesn't mean I'm always going to make the right decisions. I mean, I make all kinds of wrong turns, but I know.
Bravo. Not that it matters what I think, right? Like cherry on top here, but bravo, girlfriend. Yes. All right. Well, we have a pop-up class to go teach.
We sure do.
I think we need to start a whole other podcast where it's like the Janelle and Alexis SoulSway show. I don't know.
Well, maybe it's a thing.
I don't know. God, can you move back? We love you. We go take a SoulSway class. I mean, go take all the SoulSway classes. Go do something to nourish yourself and give yourself self-care and self-recognition that you are the expert of your life. Don't give your power away. Whatever you don't own, somebody else is going to take ownership over from the inside out and the outside in. So that's my PSA for today, everybody. Signing off from Look at Me Now. See you next time. Join us for Look at Me Now, wherever you listen to podcasts. And be sure to share, like, and subscribe.